Yeah. So we are in Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11, the last big war, the war with the kings of the north, right? We had the last chapter was the kings of the south, and now it's the kings of the north. It continues the general plan of that we said. It was to cut the land in the middle, go to the south, and then go to the north, even though the plan wasn't always on part of Yehoshua, because we saw that the king of Jerusalem started the battle against Givon, and Yehoshua knew how to be flexible, meaning using opportunities to advance in his program, right? It's not like going according to the book, it doesn't matter what's happened. He saw what's happened and react. So again, we see that Yehoshua is going to react to a move from the kings of the north. So the chapter starts the same words as the two former chapters. It says, "Vayich Shmoa Yavin Melech Chatzor." When the news reached King Yavin of Chatzor. Vayich Shmoa, when he heard. We can also translate when he heard. So again, the chapter 10 starts with the word Vayich Shmoa Adoni Tzedek Melech Yerushalayim. When Adoni Tzedek heard. And chapter number 9 starts with the words when all the kings heard. The only difference is what they heard. When it's in chapter 9, it's heard about, it doesn't say what they heard. It doesn't say what they heard. And then after that, Givon, the people of Givon heard what Yehoshua did to Yericho and the Ai. So we can assume that the same thing that heard the kings of all the kings. We say this union of all the kings actually was broken by the people of Givon. So the initial plan to fight everybody together against Yehoshua, it was broken by the people of Ai, of Givon. And then in chapter 10, it says, "Vayichi Shmoa ki lachad Yehoshua et Ai." He heard what Yehoshua did to Ai, and also that the people of Givon made peace with Israel. So he heard that. And then he reacted and he did his union. And now in 11th chapter, it says also again, Vayichi Shmoa Yavin Melech Chatzor. When Yavin Melech Chatzor heard, but he doesn't say again what he heard. What did he hear? It said, when the news reached King Yavin of Chatzor, he sent messages to King Yoav of Madon, to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Achshaf. And it doesn't say what he heard. So the commentator says, it may be heard what's happened in the south. It may be what's happened with Givon, and maybe what's happened with Yericho and the Ai. So generally is hearing about the situation in the land of Israel. And now he's calling again to do a union. He cannot do a general union of all the nation in the land of Israel. He has to go to the alliance in the north, right? And he calling Yavin Melech Madon, the king of Shimron. What is his name? He doesn't mention. He mentioned Yavin Melech Chatzor, Yovav Melech Madon, and then Melech Shimron, the king of Shimron, and Melech Achshaf. He doesn't say again the name. And in the next verse, it continues, and to the other kings in the north. That doesn't even mention the cities, right? In the beginning, not important enough. Yes, so there are some level. Okay, so that may be the answer. In the hill country, in the Arava, south of Kinneret, in the lowland, and in the district of Dor on the west. So generally, it's all the north. So as Yitzhak said, we can see there are levels. The most important is Yavin Melech Chatzor. Now, we're going to see that Yavin Melech Chatzor is going to die in this chapter. Yehoshua is going to kill him. Yavin Melech Chatzor, yeah, in this case. But we will see this name again in Sefer Shoftim, in the war of Sisra. It also speaks about Yavin Melech Chatzor, or Yavin Melech Canaan. So why is that? It's exactly like Paro. What is Paro? Paro is his name. We say Paro Melech Mitzrayim. Paro, the king of Mitzrayim. Or maybe it's generally like saying a king. Or Avimelech Melech Grar. We see different Avimelech Melech Grar in different generations, right? So it may be the same one, but it's more logical to say that it's just the title. So important kingdoms had, like we say Caesar in Rome, and you say, I don't know, prime minister or president, so it also was the special name. Paro was general name for all the kings of Egypt, and then they have the personal name. And Chatzor,
Father, son.
yeah. No, it's not like what, Trudeau?
No, it's like a dog. Father, his father was funny.
No, yeah, so it's not like Trudeau in Canada, right? It's like not like Elizabeth in England. It's the name of the kingdom, right? So Yavin here, we see it has special name. So the kings in Canaan, the king in Chatzor were named Yavin, generally. So we see the importance of it. It's like the general central city of the north of Israel. And then there also one important king that is mentioned his name, Yovav Melech Madon. And then also only the cities, Shimron and Achshap, because it's less important. It's already 3 levels. And then all the kings of the north, of the mountain, etc. So these are the small cities, the small kingdoms. Anyway, Yavin could unite everyone, all the north. Let's see another verse. So to the Canaanim in the east and in the west, to the Amorim, Chittim, Perizim, and Yevusim in the hill country, and to the Chivim at the foot of Hermon, in the land of Mitzpah. So where is Hermon? You know, it's up north, in the northest part of Israel. Chivim, do you remember the name Chivim? Where did we meet the Chivim? In Jerusalem. The people who lived in Jerusalem were the Chivim. So were there, no, also Chivi. What?
It's not Yevusi.
I think it's also Chivi.
Yeah,
but maybe I'm mistaken. But anyway, it's another issue. We'll see the Chivi in other time. But here they are up in the north, right? Well, all these different nations, Emori, Chiti, Perizi, Yevusi, again, Ephron Chiti. Chiti is in Hebron. Ephron Chiti was in Hebron in the south. As here it mentioned one of the nations of the north. So apparently there were like mixed of nations. There were some who were in the north, in the south. Anyway, he collected all the nations of the north. And then the result is, we see in verse 4, they took the field with all their armies, an enormous host, as numerous as the sands of the seashore, and a vast multitude of horses and chariots. All these kings joined forces. They came and encamped together at the waters of Merom to give battle to Israel. So where is this place exactly? There are different opinions. Let's say it's Meron. Meron in the center of the Galil, up near Tzfat, right? So they are gathering all together, and the verse says there are as much as the sand of the seashore and a lot of horses and rechev. How do you say that? Chariots. I will say another few words from the next verse, but God said to Yehoshua, do not be afraid of them. Again, when Hashem told you don't be afraid, it's not because he thinks you are not afraid. So if it says don't be afraid, meaning he was afraid. So it looks like Yehoshua was afraid of them, or it was at least a little bit of concern. To understand that, we have, I think the most important words here is a sus v'rechev. And we can see that there was difficulties in fighting against horses. Am Israel had this problem during many generations. We will see that in the beginning of Sefer Shoftim, and after that when people had this rechev, these chariots, it was much harder to Am Israel to deal with that. If we're talking about the realistic level, it was just, we can say today, it was like the tank of those days. Try to imagine an army without tanks fight against army with tanks, and not with the missiles that we have nowadays. That they are, I mean, you have only your weapon, your guns, and you have to go against tanks. There is a story about, I heard that it's not very exact, but that in the Second World War, the Polish army went with horses against tanks. I heard that it's not quite true, but let's say it's true. It's hopeless, right? You can't do anything against. What is the only way you can deal with them is when you go to the mountains. In Sefer Shoftim, we will see when we write the Sefer Shoftim, the battle between Barak and Dvorah against Israel, against of the people of Canaan, of Chatzor, and it was also they had a lot of rechev, chariots, tanks, the tanks of time, and it was needed a special miracle that it was in this day a lot of rain, and they couldn't use their chariots, and they couldn't use it because the land was mad. So Am Yisrael always had this problem, and we see that Shevet Ephraim couldn't arrive to his places because the Canaanim were there with the horses. So it was a powerful tool and a weapon in this time. And again, the numbers here are very, very large. So this is a problem that Yehoshua has to deal with. Hashem told him, let's see it so. But God said to Yehoshua, do not be afraid of them. Tomorrow at this time, I will have them all lying slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and birds and chariots. So here it's strange also. Hashem told him, after you will win them, I will help you and you will win them. But then you should hamstring. What is hamstring? Taking the legs?
Yeah, cutting or
Not the legs itself, the part in the...
like to pass it from.
Yeah, so they cannot be used for a war. So there is a discussion here, a disagreement about this word, if it means to cut their legs actually, or only this part. I mean, in English, no, but in Hebrew, what does it mean to seem te'aker? What does it mean le'aker? So let's go in this explanation. It just makes them unuseful for a war, useless for a war, right? So why to do that? Wouldn't you, if you are winning the army with a lot of tanks, won't you take the tanks for yourself?
Don't know how to use them.
Yeah, well, learn how to use them. No?
Like getting a hold of
force him to do whatever he wants.
like getting a hold of the weapons today. Don't know how to use their guns to fire them. Someone's going to teach you how to use them.
I think that learning using a horse and a chariot, well, maybe it takes times. You know, nowadays the Taliban took the weapons of the Americans in Afghanistan. So yeah, they're using it against Iran now. There was fights against Iran in these weeks between Afghanistan and Iran. Yeah, like bring the popcorn, right? But I mean, they are using their weapons. I mean, it's not too hard to learn that, right? But Hashem tells them, make them all useless. Don't, you shall hamstring the horses and burn the chariots.
But they don't have enough time to learn how to deal with the horses.
They have lifetime. I mean, they can use that for the future. Captured.
Yeah. So one soldier told me that he was under a Sharon commander. He shot. He don't have enough time even to keep the Egyptian.
Okay, I don't think this is the case here. Hashem told him, after you finish them, after I will give you, after I will let you win the battle, then after that, you have enough time. Everything is cool now, is calm. Don't use this. Burn everything. Okay, we'll see that later. Anyway, Hashem told him, you shouldn't be afraid. Let's go and start the war. Okay, so the next verse says, so Yehoshua, with all his combat troops, came upon them suddenly at the waters of Merom and pounced upon them. So here the word suddenly is important. It alludes that it's exactly like the former war. Do you remember in the former war, Yehoshua went in all the night from the Gilgal and arrived in the morning and fight against the people around Givon. So it was he surprised them. So the only way to overcome this powerful weapon of the horses and the chariots was to come suddenly. Hashem told him tomorrow, meaning, again, he walked all the night, right? Again, he's walking all the night. If we are talking that Yehoshua was apparently in the Gilgal, it's around 100, 150 kilometers at least until there. So it's at least all the night, even let's say miracles and stuff. It doesn't say any miracle. Actually, in this war, again, we don't see any miracle. It's all natural, right? And Yehoshua making this move, going all the night, it doesn't say that Hashem told him to do that. So apparently it's for his initiative, right? He did that. And again, he won in this combination of natural human efforts and the help from Hashem that was in a natural way. It wasn't any miracle. Hashem helped him. It says, like the next verse says, God delivered them into the hands of Israel. And they defeated them and pursued them all the way to Great Sidon and Misrefot Maim, and all the way to Valley of Mitzpah on the east. They crushed them, letting none escape. Again, so again, it's here having all the army outside the cities. It's the same like we said in the south, making a surprising move and finishing the big battle in one time. So now it says the places that he arrived. Sidon Rabbah. Where is Sidon Rabbah? It's again up in the north until Lebanon. So it doesn't make any sense that they could do everything in this day. And then it says Mizracha, to the east. Mitzpah, it's around the Kinneret, right? And then it says Misrafot Maim. What is Misrafot Maim? Misrafot Maim literally mean burning or burned water. What does it mean to burn water? Can we burn water?
To boil it.
To boil it in order to?
Oh, maybe Hamad Gadel.
No, to make salt. So the commentator said salt. Right?
Dead Sea?
No, also in the Mediterranean Sea. How did they make salt? They took the water of the sea and they make them dry until it became the salt stay, right? This is the way, this is misrefot maim. You burn the water in order to have salt. Anyway, should be near the sea in the west. So we are talking here about all the north, up to Lebanon, up to the east until Kinneret, the Jordan River, and until the west, where the sea is, right? So we are speaking here about all the north, not walk of one day. It's not one day. We are talking about many days. But again, like we saw in the south, it was like a journey of war around all the south. But let's see the differences in the next verses. And then we have to answer the questions that we made before. And Yehoshua dealt with them as God had ordered him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. Why did Yehoshua do that? So why Hashem told him to do that? So the explanation that most of the Mefarshim say that Hashem didn't want Am Israel to trust this force, this power. He wanted them to trust themselves. To trust God, to trust the help of God. So this is a little bit strange that we say many times. Finally, the final purpose is to live naturally, to live without the help of Hashem, the miracle of Hashem. But looks like here, something in the horses and in these chariots and this power represents the Knaani culture, right? The Knaani culture that not only saying, well, I will do my effort, it's also delete and canceled the existence of God, right? This powerful weapon made the people forget that Hashem is also exists. It's also part of the story. I think it's like a gradual process. In the future, we can use everything, but in this moment of this changing from the outside of Israel to the land of Israel and getting used to achieve things by yourself, you should always remember that Hashem is also part of it. You should also always trust Hashem. This is related to the verses in Sefer Dvarim about the king. You know that the king of Israel has some special mitzvot, right? What are the mitzvot of the king? He should have Sefer Torah always with him, right? He should always say. And then he had some prohibitions. What are the prohibitions? He cannot have too much gold. He cannot have too much horses. And he cannot marry too much women. Only 17, not more than that. That's what the Gemara said. Okay, why we mention that? Because it was very used. I mean, why would someone marry 17 or 1,000 women, like in the case of Shlomo?
It might be a question of making treaties with.
Exactly. Exactly. Marrying kings in the old days, in ancient days, wasn't because someone fall in love. It was political move to have treaty, to have covenants with other nation, agreements with other nation. So here, Hashem told the king, you should not trust yourself too much. You shouldn't have too much horses. You shouldn't have too much gold. You should keep modest in order to understand that always Hashem is involved. You are not alone in this world. You are not disconnected from Hashem. You should always take into consideration that Hashem is part of the story. For example, about the horses, there is a disagreement between Rashi and Rambam. And this disagreement goes in other issues also. For example, in the case of the horses, Rashi said you should limit yourself in the horses of the war in order to trust Hashem. Rambam explained, no, it's not, it say you cannot have even one horse more than what you need for your army. Or having horses in order to run in front of the king. So we used to have, like, for honor the king, people running in front of him or horses around him. It was only to see the glory of the king. So this kind of horses to come to the glory of the king, or more than what you need, also because you like to have a lot of horses and see them run. So this is bad. But what you need for your army, you take as much as you want. It's not a problem. So, for example, we can understand also maybe why Shlomo was wrong with that. Shlomo didn't keep these laws. He had a lot of gold, he had a lot of women, he had a lot of horses, all that mentioned. And then it says, the Torah says that that was what caused him to finally also sin. Doesn't matter if himself or the nation. I won't enter that. Without Hashem, when we arrive to Sefer Melachim, we will see that, right? But he certainly did against what's written in the Torah. So the question is why. So Chachamim say, for example, in this case, the Torah says the reason why you shouldn't have. So if you see the reason, many times you can think, well, I understand the reason, so I can do that, and it won't happen to me. I can have a lot of horses, and I will not forget Hashem. I can have a lot of women, a lot of treaties with the nations around us, and it won't make me leave the way of the Torah. So he thought he's smarter than that, and he failed in that. He failed for that. So anyway, what it looks like in this moment, it may be the reason that you say they didn't know how to use that. Hashem told them to burn it. I mean, it's a decision that Yehoshua can take by himself. It not looks like Hashem would tell him something like that. You don't know how to use the horses to keep, so hamstrung them. No, I think it's more than that. And what the Mefarshim say, it's more than that. At least in this level, or at least in this moment, you shouldn't trust too much the human power. You should still keep Hashem in these considerations. So, and here we have the discussion, only in this moment or for all the future? Rashi would say always. Always. You shouldn't trust too much your power. You should always think that Hashem is also involved with that. And Rambam would say, no, it was only in this moment. But after that, you can have as much horses as you need for your army. Don't buy one airplane only to show yourself or to show your honor. Or don't buy one tank only to say, I have a lot of tanks. But if you need them to protect yourself or to protect your country, it's okay to use them. Something similar is about, between Rambam and Rashi, is about medicine. I think I talked about it in one drasha. So it was what it's called Sefer Refuot, Book of Medicines. And it says that Chizkiah ganaz oto. Ganaz meaning he hid it. He didn't want them to use it. What is the Book of Medicine? So Rashi explains that it was a book with all the medicine for all the disease in the world. Any kind of disease, there is a medicine, and this is in this book. So why did Chizkiah hid it? Because he didn't want, he wanted the people to trust Hashem and not the book, right? So try to imagine that. We find a solution for the cancer, and then we say, no, don't use that, trust Hashem. It's something that we say, no. Usually. So Rambam is very annoyed with this explanation. He didn't mention that Rashi wrote it. It's interesting, Rambam never in none of his books mentioned Rashi. He surely knew about Rashi because he lived before him and everybody knew Rashi. But Rambam doesn't mention Rashi, not even one time. Many times he speaks about things that Rashi wrote without mentioning his name. It's a question, I don't know exactly why. Interesting question. Anyway, in this case, he also mentions his opinion without mentioning Rashi. It's not only Rashi, others also say that. And he say that explanation doesn't make any sense. It's not true. Because if you have medicine, you must use it. You don't trust Hashem, you use the medicine. Of course, trust Hashem and pray for Hashem and ask for help. But if you have, so he explains the book of medicine means some book of magics, of unnatural tools that not necessarily should be used. Not because they are not used, I mean, because it's magic. It's how do you say, magia? Magia. Yeah, kishuv.
Little footnote, what they meant by hamstring of a horse, there's a leg tendon. If you cut the leg tendon, the horse can't gallop. You can still use it for farming, but it will not be able to gallop.
Yeah,
so you can't
to walk. You can't use it for walk.
Can't use it for, no.
Yeah.
They mentioned the victorious armies ensured that the enemy's horses could not use in battle again. It's cool, but
yeah. Okay, so I think this is generally the answer. The answer, like we said, at least in this case, but also maybe also the future depends on the opinions. You shouldn't have too much military power. You should also always limit your military power in order to remember that you have also to take into consideration the existence of Hashem and his intervention in helping you. Okay, so let's continue now. I mentioned in the last class that I see differences between this war and the former war. We saw that the former war was perfect in all the meaning. It was Yehoshua with Am Israel together. It was a combination of human efforts and human initiative with divine help that helped, but we weren't depend on it. We weren't depend on the miracles. We were dependent on the helping of Hashem, like always, but not in the miracles. The miracles come to like give you the extra help. And that Yehoshua did everything very, very fast, as fast as he could. He didn't went back to the Gilgal until he finished all the south, all the journey in the south, from all the city. So everything worked perfectly. And we see now here there's some differences, small differences, but maybe showing something. So, and then you can already see that, well, in the first verse, it's mentioned Yehoshua v'chol am ha'milchama, in verse 7. Yehoshua v'chol am ha'milchama. Yehoshua will all the combat troops. It doesn't say v'chol ha'am, all the people of war, of the combat troops. So we can see that not everybody is with him already. At least it doesn't express in the same way. Right? And then after that, Yehoshua, you can see differences. In verse 8, it mentioned only Israel. Israel. And then in 9, you see only Yehoshua. Vayaslem Yehoshua. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the make difference. When you say Yehoshua, you mean Yehoshua with all the people. But we can see the differences. Over there, it's always mentioned 5, 6 times, or 7 times it's mentioned, it's Yehoshua v'chol Israel imo. Yehoshua v'chol Israel. 7 times it says this verse, these words, Yehoshua and all Israel with him. And here not, it speaks about Yehoshua differently and about Am Israel differently. Say, for example, here in verse 10, Yehoshua then turned back and captured Chatzor. I mean, after he did all the round in all the north, he came back to Chatzor. And put its kings to the sword. Chatzor was formerly the head of all those kingdoms. Like we said before, Chatzor was the main leader, the main city. But again, Yehoshua did that. It doesn't say that Am Israel did that. They proscribed and put to the sword every person in it, not a soul survived, and Chatzor itself was burned down. Only Chatzor. Yehoshua captured all those royal cities and their kings. He put them to the sword. He proscribed them in accordance with the charge of Moshe, the servants of God. However, all those towns that are still standing on their mounts were not burned down by Israel. Right? Israel didn't burn them down, not Yehoshua. It was Chatzor alone that Yehoshua burned down. Okay, it always speaks differently. Am Israel didn't do what maybe they had to do. Yehoshua did what he had to do, but Am Israel not. Again, so we see there start to be a difference, a gap, again, between Yehoshua and the people, like we said before the war of the south. And again, the Israelim kept all the spoil and cattle of the rest of the city as booty, but they cut down their population with a sword until they exterminated them. They did not spare a soul. So again, the Am Israel is concentrated in the spoil, right? It doesn't in what Yehoshua concentrated, which is, like the next verse said, just as the Eternal had commanded servant Moshe, so Moshe had charged Yehoshua, and so Yehoshua did. He left nothing undone of all that God had commanded Moshe. Yehoshua did what Moshe commanded. Am Israel was concentrated in the spoil. So we can see that again, this gap happened. Okay, let's continue now, and we'll see now maybe the most important difference, and also some critics about Yehoshua himself. So Yehoshua conquered the whole of this region, the hill country of Yehuda, the Negev, the whole land of Goshen. Where is Goshen?
Sinai.
Goshen, if you remember Am Israel, when he went to Egypt, he conquered Goshen. He lived in Goshen. So Yehoshua was in Egypt also. So we certainly here not speaking anymore about the north. We're speaking about all the land. So Goshen, it can be two explanations. Some say it's other Goshen, it's not the same Goshen. And others say Goshen was near Egypt, in the north of Egypt, meaning in Israel actually. So they actually lived in Israel.
Like Negev?
Yeah, in the south of Israel, maybe Sinai, part of Sinai. Anyway, Yehoshua says here that he took all the land. Now we are talking about all the land, not only about the north. And Shfela, the Arava, and the hill country and coastal plain of Israel, from the Mount Halak, which leads to Seir. Where is Seir? Also in the south, but in the east side of the Jordan, in the south, right? And then it says the Ad Baal Gad, all the way to Baal Gad. Baal Gad again is the eastern part of the Jordan. It's not in Israel. It's in Jordan, right? I mean, it's Israel, but in the north, in the eastern part of the Jordan, up north, more north than Seir. No, it's Jordan. We are going from the south, from our Seir, southeast, Middle East, and then Ad בבקעת הלבנון, תחת הר חרמון, until the north. ואת כל מלכיהם לחד, ויקם וימיתם. And he captured all the kings there and executed them. And then comes a big difference. Yehoshua waged war with all those kings over a long period. Yamim Rabim, a long period. If you remember in the last chapter in Perek Yud, we saw it says, בפעם אחת, in one time. It doesn't mean in one stroke, it was the word in the translation. בפעם אחת. It doesn't mean in one day, but it means that it didn't come back to their camp until they finish all the south. And here it says, Yamim Rabim, a lot of days. Why did it take a lot of days? There it also took a lot of days. Looks like longer time than what we expected. We would expect it to be faster, and it's happened very slow, right? So here, Chachamim added some midrash that it's very interesting, and it's criticizing Yehoshua. The midrash starts from saying that Hashem told Yehoshua, as I was with Moshe, I will be with you. Exactly as I was with Moshe, I will be, כאשר הייתי עם משה, יהיה עמך, I will be with you. And then they concluded from that as Moshe lived 120 years, Yehoshua also should live 120 years. But how old was Yehoshua when he died?
110.
110.
He missed 10 years.
He missed 10 years. So why Hashem didn't fulfill his promise? Hashem told him, I will be with you as I was with Moshe, meaning you will going to live the same as him. And there are a lot of comparison between Moshe and Yehoshua. But in this case, Yehoshua wasn't as old as Moshe. So Chachamim said, actually, it was punishment for Yehoshua. Why? Because Hashem, when Hashem told Moshe in the end of his life, you should revenge the Midianim. You remember the story with Bilam, the Midianim. So you should revenge them. And after that, you will die. you have this mission, last mission. After you're doing this mission, you're going to die. And Chachamim said that Moshe, immediately after that, he went right away to do this mission. He didn't care that he's going to die. I mean, he could wait. You know what? Okay, let's do that next week. Next once. 1, 2 years. It's there. I'm not going anywhere, right? You can do that later. No. Hashem told me to do that. I'm do that immediately. And the next day, he went to the war, and after that, he died. Yehoshua, from the other side, when he understood that when he finished to conquer the land and divide it between the tribes, he's going to die, he delayed it. So Hashem said, you delayed it to live longer, so you're going to be punished to live less. So this is the Midrash of Chachamim. And this is a big question. Really, that's what Yehoshua wanted? These 10 years, that was so important for me? I mean, 10 years. To live a little bit longer, you have the mission of Hashem. I mean, we are talking about Yehoshua, one of the greater tzaddikim. So why did Yehoshua, it was important for him to live so much? I mean, 110 years. I wish all of us will live 110 years, right? But before answering that, I would say that we can see the differences between this chapter and the former. In the former, we feel this sense of urgency. They wanted to finish fast. You remember what we said about the miracle of the sun and the moon. The sun. Why did he want the sun to stay? He wanted to finish everything today. And it said from today for tomorrow. In one day they took that. In one day they took that. Everything was fast, quickly. And here he doesn't say anything about doing things quickly. Or Yamim Rabim, many days. It took a long time. So there are some explanation about that. I will mention some of them. Let's start with Sfat Emet. Sfat Emet says it wasn't in purpose. Yehoshua didn't think, okay, you know what? I will take a week vacation now. I will go to to Florida, to 1 month, and then I go back to the war, right? He didn't say that, but it had it somewhere in his, when somewhere in your head, you have some thoughts that can't leave you. You're not acting according to that, but it makes all your attitude different. I mean, you're not hurry up. You're not doing that with all your heart. There is some negiah meaning some personal interest that is involved, and it affects the way you do the things. It's not like the purpose is, yeah, I want to do that as fast as I can. But it's not like you're coming in, we saw in the former chapters, Vayashkem Yehoshua, he came early in the morning. It's not like coming, you know what, okay, he said he's going to speak with you tomorrow. Okay, let's wait till tomorrow. It affects the way you do the things, not the purpose or not the general decisions, but the small decisions that make it, instead of everything today, to Yamim Rabim, many days. This is one explanation. I still think it's not good enough. I want to think that Yehoshua has had other considerations that are more important. So why would Yehoshua wait? We can see, I think we can find another two reasons. We start with the verses in Shmot Kaf Gimel. Hashem say, let's see that in English also. Yeah. So Hashem promised Moshe that he's talking about the war in the land of Israel. I will send forth my terror before you, and I will throw into panic all the people among whom you come, and I will make all your enemies turn tail before you, etc. So he said, I will help you in the war, and you will win all the wars in the land of Israel. You will take this land. And then he said, I will not drive them out before you in a single year, lest the land become desolate and the wild beasts multiply to your heart. I will drive them out before you little by little until you have increased and possess the land. So Hashem say also, it's Sefer Shmot, chapter 23. Hashem told him, you won't take all the city in 1 year. It should take time. Why? Because if you take in all the actual inhabitants from the land, it will become a desert, right? Desolate country. And the animals will be there, and it will be much harder. We need to keep them there until you can take all the land. So Hashem also said it won't happen in 1 year, right? We can see the same verses also almost that Moshe tells Am Israel in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 7. Your God Hashem will dislodge them, those people before you, little by little. You will not be able to put an end to them at once, else the wild beasts would multiply to your heart. So Hashem will help you taking them, but it should be a gradual process. It doesn't have to be in one day. So here, maybe we can think that Yehoshua thought, well, until now it went so fast. We took Yericho, we took Ai, Givon, all the south, and now in one night he went to the north and finished all the kings of the north, killed everybody. Okay, very good. But now it's gonna, if we did, I mean, let's say 2 months, 3 months, half a year, we finished all the big armies, all the big cities. What would happen if now I will take all the rest of it in one day? It's exactly what it says. It won't happen in 1 year, as Shem told him. It won't happen in 1 year. It should take time. It should be gradual process. So Yehoshua wanted to say, you know what? Let's do that a little bit slower. We finished the big challenges, the kings of the south, Yericho, the king of the north. Now let's put in the gear a lower gear, right? And do that in a slower rhythm. So that was a mistake. But why that was a mistake? Hashem didn't tell him, you should do it slow. Hashem said, I will take care that it will be slow. So let Hashem do what he has to do, and you do what you have to do. You don't have to take into consideration what Hashem thinks that should be happening. You should do what you are ordered to do, right? So maybe this can be one explanation. Another explanation, which I think is the best explanation. Let's remember the moment when Yehoshua was named as a leader. It was in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 31, and it says there was a special moment between Hashem, Moshe, and Yehoshua. Hashem said to Moshe, the time is drawing near for you to die. Call Yehoshua and present yourself in the tent of meeting, that I may instruct him. So this is a moment when the leadership went from Moshe to Yehoshua. Hashem told Moshe, call Yehoshua, both of you come in front of me in the Oel Moed, okay? And I will instruct him. Moshe and Yehoshua went and present themselves in the tent of meeting. So what would Hashem will tell them? Do you remember these verses? It's sometimes we just... Okay, anyway, Hashem appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and pillar of cloud having come to rest at the entrance of the tent. And then Hashem tells Moshe what's going to happen. Hashem said to Moshe, you are soon to lie with your ancestors. These people, Am Israel, will thereupon go astray after the alien gods in the midst, in the land that they are about to enter. They will forsake me and break my covenant, and I made with them. Then my anger will flare up against them, and I will abandon them and hide my countenance from them. They shall be ready prey, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. And they shall say it on that day, surely it is because our God is not in our midst that these evils have befallen us. Yet I will keep my countenance hidden on that day because of all the evils they have done in turning to other gods. This is the instruction for Yehoshua. It's actually a prophecy about what's going to happen. Everybody, Am Yisrael is going to betray me. Am Yisrael is going to leave the path of the Torah, and I will punish them. Right? So this is the instruction for Yehoshua. When did it happen? When will it happen? It says, after your death. The death of whom? It said, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. After you will die, all this will happen. Immediately after you will die?
No, but Yehoshua takes over.
So it says actually that all the days of Moshe, Yehoshua, and the elders, Kenim, how do you say, ancestors, that lived after Yehoshua, Am Yisrael still kept the Torah. It only happened in the day of the judge. But Yehoshua knew when Hashem told Moshe, when you will die, meaning you and Yehoshua, I mean, all this leadership, when they passed away, then the problems will start, and actually started in the days of the Shoftim. So Yehoshua understands that he has this limit time to help Am Yisrael may prevent this. I mean, Hashem says it's going to happen, but if they can deal with that, if they can overcome that, it won't happen. It's a warning more than prophecy. It's very possible that Am Yisrael will forget after you die and will leave the path of the Torah, right? So it's something possible, depends on you. So Yehoshua wants to delay all this process as much as he can in order to be able to influence the people, and that prevents this prophecy. He hears this prophecy before he started to be the leader. It's always in his mind. Am Yisrael is going to abandon the Torah. I must prevent it. I must help him educate them. So if we finish fast all these wars, and they will go each one to his land, each tribe to his nachala, to his part of the land, and I will not be in contact with them anymore, that would happen. I must prevent it. So he wanted to delay all the process. We see in the end of the book, the last chapters, we have also the speeches of Yehoshua. He speaks about it a lot. So this fear of what would happen after I will leave this land, this world, after I will die, what will happen with Am Yisrael, that's what's concerned Yehoshua, according to this explanation, which I think is the best explanation, and that's the reason he wanted to delay. Again, it's a mistake. It's a mistake because you cannot intervene, you cannot act according to this consideration. You just must do what Hashem told you to do. Hashem told you to conquer the land, do that, right? But I mean, I can understand what are the motives of Yehoshua. This kind of mistake is acceptable regarding to Yehoshua. Just saying, I just want to live another 5 years in his pension, in retirement. No, it's not the reason. The reason is he had missions to complete. He wanted to complete his missions, and that's the reason that he made this mistake. Okay. Any comments, questions?
Oh, by the way, I might mention to you,
You're right.
Rabbi
That's
Stein,
all.
so